Taiwan for 14 years.
What part of Ohio?
Southern Ohio.
You're welcome.
Like, yes.
And have you found any decent Mexican places anywhere in Taiwan? Let's start a restaurant.
Do you like Mexican?
I love Mexican. It's like the official cuisine of LA. The official,
That's kind of, that's like my comfort food.
yeah, I figured you'd be,
Do you know Utah?
well, yeah, it's the border. Yeah. Most people in Southern California know it.
You're coming from San Diego, yeah, you gotta go to Yuma. And Arizona.
We're so glad you joined us.
From LA, you bypass it. Go straight to Yuma.
Yeah.
So, just to let you guys know here on the back, on the bottom in the back here, is my kind of experience. And let me start off by saying, 14 years ago, I was where you are right now. I was one of the very first teachers here, and Ming Fu was my school. So I feel like I'm coming home. I taught in the program for 3 years, and then I was the education department assistant manager for one of the companies that hired the teachers. So I was in charge of training. After that, I worked in Wishibans, but primarily I've worked with the Shinju University of Education, which is the Teachers College, and now I'm working with Jiao Tong University in their language center. But I've been involved with the program pretty much since the beginning, and I've done the summer training the last 3 years, I think. But off and on, I've probably done a total of 5 or 6 different trainings. So I hope that you find this helpful, useful, and I want to start out actually by finding out a little bit about you. I want to know if you'll share where you're from and what background you have in education, because I know a lot of the teachers that come here, obviously you have a teaching certificate or a license from your own country. So I'm just curious to know what your background is before we start, because I think a lot of what I'm going to share, hopefully you're going to have experience with already. So, start with you.
I'm Maurice, I'm from South Africa, and I've been here the whole time
Okay.
since 2003. I was part of this program for 4 years before, but the last 4 years I was in French at the bilingual school. I was studying education.
Okay.
So I've done this training and they forced me to do it again.
Yeah, okay.
I've done it 4 years.
4 years ago.
Yeah, four times.
Four times.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know we have training for the new teachers,
Yes.
but then there's also training for the returning teachers and ongoing training throughout the semester.
So I've been teaching in different settings in Taiwan.
Okay. Different grade levels, all.
Yeah, well, the last 4 years I only teaching for primary
Grade 2. Okay. All right.
I'm Catherine.
Catherine?
I'm also from South Africa. I was a high school teacher for 4 years before coming over to Taiwan. I've been here for 4.5 years, and I was working at the Bushwan Test for 4.5 years, teaching 3-year-olds to adults.
Okay. Good. Okay. Marius, Catherine. I'm going to write your names down. So. Okay.
I'm Nanda. I come from South Africa. And yeah, I was elementary school teacher. I was vice principal of a school when I lived there. And came here for the experience. Want to teach in Taiwan, see how it is before I die.
Wonderful phrase. I hope you heard that
traveled a lot since, and
How long have you been here now?
a year.
A year now.
Yeah, and I did some bushiban first,
Mm-hmm.
just to get myself.
Okay. All right, so you guys definitely have some experience here. Are you all three new teachers, or you also have some experience here?
Well, I graduated from the University of Arizona, Tucson,
Okay.
degree in education.
Mm-hmm.
Have SCI endorsement, TEFL endorsement. I taught with the MOE teacher exchange program 2 years ago in Pingdong County,
Okay.
and took a break, and now I'm back.
Okay. And what's your name?
My name is Ben.
Ben. Ben. Okay. Nice to meet you. All right.
I'm Taryn. I have taught in high school. So I'm from South Africa.
Okay.
I taught in a high school before coming here, about a year or so, and I've only been here since the beginning of the year, so I only have a few months experience working.
Okay.
Andrew, I'm from Los Angeles,
Okay.
and most of my experiences with coaching little kids and high school students. I was a running coach for 6 years, and I started a nonprofit for little kids, teaching how to run. So I'm familiar with little kids, teaching that stuff, but specifically with like teaching English. I've been teaching for 18 months, 1 year in Japan, and a few months in Taiwan, as well. So my major is actually history, but I'm doing a master's in TESOL online right now, and I have a TESOL certificate.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, then let me just continue on then to tell you a little bit about myself. Like I said, I've been here for 14 years, and my background is my bachelor's is in Soviet studies. The Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore, so it's technically history. My master's degree is in international development, and I focus a lot on technology transfer, political science, sociology, and I also have a TEFL course that I did here as well. So I think that the fact that the program now is specifically focusing on people with the education background, the education degree, is definitely helpful. But I think the fact that a lot of you do have experience is going to be very, very helpful for you. So you kind of already know a little bit of what you're going to get into. Today, I am going to... you want me to use the microphone? What if I speak very loudly? You still want me to use a microphone?
I think because they're recording it. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got it. Yeah. Thank you. All right. As you can see on the handout here, I'm going to talk about 3 things today. First, I'm going to talk about phonics. Then I'm going to talk about pronunciation. And finally, I'll talk about reading. And then the last thing I'm going to do is to leave a little bit of time for us to work together, do a little bit of workshop, really try and put some of the stuff that I'm showing you into practice as far as activities or games or things like that go, to try and help you see how to incorporate it into the curriculum that you'll be teaching. Do you all know which schools you're going to be at? Yes. All right. So again, with the phonics here, I'm going to start off with what is phonics, why teach phonics, what to teach, and when you're teaching, what kind of focus you should use, how to go about teaching the phonics, and planning your phonics lessons. Now, let me ask you, when you were growing up, how many of you were taught phonics? Yeah. Yeah. I know that in the U.S. there was a shift for a while. When I was growing up, we definitely had phonics, but my younger brothers didn't get phonics. Now, phonics is just one tool, it's just one method, but I particularly think it's a very good method. And it really does help not only with pronunciation, but teaching kids reading and that love of reading, you can really get them interested in reading at a young age. It can be extremely beneficial. Okay, pronunciation. I'm going to be a little bit technical, talking about, especially when you're trying to teach young kids who are second language learners how to pronounce English, and especially sounds that they have problems with. There's certain things you can do. So we'll talk about, how to show them, how to instruct, what to focus on, because there's definitely things that Mandarin-speaking students have problems with that students from other countries might not have problems with. So we can focus on that as well. And then, like I said, finally we'll focus on strategies, really, of how to help students use those phonics to improve their reading. All right. All right. Okay. The first thing here, what is phonics? It's that relationship between letters and sounds. And it's not like a complete reading program. You have to use it in conjunction with other programs, with other methods. It's just one of the tools that you can use. Okay, great. All right, and like I said, it's here part of this ongoing range of activities and things that you can do for the students to improve their experience. Okay, so why teach phonics? Particularly here in Taiwan, because the students grew up with Mandarin. It's a character-based system, so you need to teach that correspondence of the letters and the sounds. So to teach them to recognize the letters and know what sounds go with it, to teach the students how to read, to teach them how to spell, because English is really crazy. We'll talk about that in a minute. And to teach them how to write. So, for example, here on the bottom, I've seen this around. G-H-O-T-I technically could be pronounced fish. If the G-H is pronounced like enough, the O is pronounced as in women, and the T-I as in motion, that could be fish. So this is the thing, I mean, if you don't teach the students that there are, some words that you can go letter by letter, but there are other words where you need to kind of know that these combinations have this particular sound. All right. On what to teach, the textbooks that you're going to be using in the different classes are most likely going to be already focusing on these things, but I want to point out what things you should be focusing on kind of with which age groups and maybe why they're split up that way. First of all, with the vowels, you're talking about long and short vowels, and you're going to focus on short vowels before you focus on long vowels. Consonant sounds, 2-letter combinations, 3-letter combinations, long words, learning that it's consonant, vowel, usually those kind of patterns can also help with not only reading but also spelling. Double letter sounds and sight words. Now sight words you're teaching for all different levels, but obviously the ones that you're teaching for the younger kids are going to be more simple sight words, and as the grade levels increase, the words will increase in length and complexity, things like that. All right, as I'm going through here, if you guys have any questions and also any comments, please just raise your hand. I don't want this to be like I'm lecturing to you. I kind of want it to be more of a dialogue. So if this is something you're familiar with, great. If you have something to add, yeah.
What's the name of the phonetic system that they use in Taiwan?
KK. Bopomofo is the kind of Taiwanese phonetic system for the Chinese. But here they use KK.
What's it stand for?
I'm not sure what it stands for, but most places use the International Phonetic Alphabet, the IPA. And here, students are familiar with KK. Now, there are some similarities, and so it would probably be if you wanted to at least become familiar with some of those, that's fine. But just know that, you know, if you're used to using the IPA symbols or things like that, that students might be more familiar with IPA or with KK.
Are they taught KK in elementary school?
I don't know. They are kind of taught
Yeah.
KK. It definitely in bushy bonds and things like that. Is it in schools that the students get the KK or no?
I know it's Bushiban they do. I'm just wondering if at the school they.
Yeah.
They're familiar with it.
Bushiban they do. Here in schools they get the Bopomofo, which is helping with the Chinese pronunciation of the Mandarin words and things like that. But KK I think is just more kind of out there. So yes, in the Bushibans and cram schools, not formally in the elementary schools. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. When you're focusing on phonics, what do you want to kind of teach them? First thing, this gross differentiation, and this is a really good one, especially here, the b, p. For example, when they're translating Mandarin words, Taiwanese words, into English, it's not standard. For example, you get Taipei with a P, Taipei, but you get Jubei with a B, right? But it's in Chinese, it's the same. It's, so you know, for students to actually hear that difference in English is difficult because the differentiation isn't always so clear when they're translating the Taiwanese, the Mandarin, into English. So really focusing on that and getting kids to be able to hear that difference. Because I can say Taipei and Taipei, and ask a student, or Taipei and Jubei, and they're not going to hear that difference. But we can. Yeah. So really focusing on that will be helpful for the students. Rhyming, also very good because this focuses on ends of words in Chinese because every character is just, you know, as it's an independent individual thing. We've got the letters, so you can see that boat and goat, it's going to have the same pronunciation and they're going to rhyme. The initial letter's different, but the ending is the same. A student might look at these words and have to sound each one out individually. They're not always going to make that connection that OAT is always going to sound the same. So they might struggle to sound out each word, and then you give them the next one, and the only thing that's different is the first letter, but to them, the whole entire word is new. So really focusing on rhyming will get them to see that with English characters, you can have, you know, learning these word endings and things like that can help out. Syllables, also very good, because, you know, in Mandarin, again, I'm going to keep kind of coming back to these comparisons. In Mandarin, in every character, it's kind of one syllable. That's why we have bo, po, mo, po. You know, everything is just one syllable. So with English words, that's why you might get kids who will pronounce things very robotic or staccato. So focusing on this word has got 2 syllables, 3 syllables, and they go together is going to help kids recognize, you know, individual words as opposed to just sounds. And blending, alliteration, segmentation, synthesis, manipulation, these are all kind of activities and things that you can do with the words. Play with them. Let me ask, when you were growing up, did you have little songs, little chants, things that you would do, like one of my favorites, my friend, her name was Lana. Lana, Lana, Bovana, Banana, Fana, Bovana, me, mine, Bovana. So you're kind of doing this rhyming and just kind of flipping the letters, switching letters, and that playing with sounds we would instinctively do is actually really good practice. So doing things like that with the kids can help out. So blending, you know, k, at, cat, b, at, bat. Again, that's focusing on that ending 2 letters and how that's going to help out with reading. Alliteration, big, boat, book, things like this, really focusing on the initial, focusing on the initial consonants, segmentation, taking a word and splitting it up, rather than having them look at it as a whole. Now, there's lots of different methods. You can look at a word as a whole, like television or hippopotamus. You can, you know, look at the whole thing and know it's got some that go up and some that go down and it's long. Will help them differentiate it. But being able to separate it out into the letters and the sounds also is good practice. And synthesis, then putting it together. Here's these letters, now put them together. You know, the students can have, you know, a good understanding of the letters, and they might be able to identify them, but again, putting that together and sounding it out and reading, that's where you're going from, you know, just the alphabet to being able to pronounce it, to being able to read. So these are things you can do. And then the manipulation, you know, little games like take the word 10 plus T gives you tent, okay? So that would be an example of the addition, you know? So you've got a word, you add one letter, can they figure that out? The subtraction, time minus T plus D, dime. Things like that. So addition, subtraction, substitution, like I did, just taking the T and the D, and then the last one, reversal. This one's kind of fun, but with this one you don't always get real words, and that's okay. Although some parents have a hard time understanding why would you ever practice things that aren't real words. But that's part of what the phonics is. It's learning how to manipulate all of these sounds and letters. So, for example, the word five, F-I-V-E, you switch the consonants and you get vife, V-I-F-E. Not a word, but it doesn't matter. The fact is, can they read it, can they sound it out? And that's the practice. That can be fun. Nonsense words can be quite fun if you tell them it doesn't mean anything, but can you say it anyway? You know, make it fun. Okay. So those are the kind of things that you'll focus on when you're doing it. So when you're teaching phonics here, there's 10 things you can do. Basically, they're pretty simple, and I'm sure you've been teaching for a while. All of you have that experience here in Taiwan as well. You have to sequence it. You have to go step by step. You know, have that plan in mind. Be very direct. Model what you're saying, what you're doing. For example, especially if it's the, you know, 10 plus T, tent, you know, write it out on the board as well as sounding it out. Really model for them what you want them to do. And that's in addition to the skills, but also the pronunciation itself. You really do want to model, like, you know, thank you. Really kind of exaggerate that a little bit so they can see, you know, show them, like, look, I gotta stick my tongue out this way, or if you can feel my throat when I'm saying zzz, things like this, that demonstration can really help them. Now, I'm not really saying, you know, let the kids put their hands all over you, but if you ask them to put their hand on their own throat while they're saying words that have that sibilance, or, you know, the stressed or unstressed, voiceless things, yeah, that can really help out. Okay. Daily lessons and daily review. I know that most classes are 40 minutes. You know, you put together your lesson plans, and I know that they're already set up to have a review at the beginning of what you did last time, the actual lesson, and then also kind of a review at the end of what you've done that day. So within that, definitely have that. Focus on one skill at a time until maybe you've built them up, then you can start to combine them. And keep lessons brief. Kids have a really short attention span. Adults, we can focus maybe 90 minutes. Yeah, and we are going to be taking a break in the middle. Yeah. But kids, yeah, 10-15 minutes tops. That's all you're really going to be able to keep them. So, you know, keep the activities short. You know, have variety. That'll keep them interested as well. When you are reading new things in the textbooks and things like that, use that as an opportunity to focus out, or to point out different phonics issues, maybe things that you talked about in the past, or say, oh, pay attention to this word. This one, we've not had a word that has this in it. This has this, you know, funny TH in it, or something like that. Point that out. Use that as the opportunity. So it doesn't have to specifically be phonics material. Anything can be phonics material. And this helping kids become wordsmiths. I don't know, I really enjoy reading ever since I was a kid, so I was, you know, encouraged. And, you know, I don't have any problem telling kids, like, I have favorite words. There's words that I really like for certain reasons, like, you know, bubble. Bubble's one of my favorite words. But I don't know, something about the way it sounds and the way you can imagine it. And if you can create that, I don't know, fun, you know, like in Chinese there's a word, shili wudu. Shili wudu. It's the sound of eating noodles. Shili wudu. I mean, that's just really cool, you know, so if you can try and make some connections or say, you know, words can be fun, this can be really interesting, again, to not only point out maybe some sounds, some phonics in it, but also get the kids excited, so make it fun. When you have a class of 30, 40 students, obviously not everybody's going to be at the same level, and that can be difficult. So what you want to do, really, shoot for the middle to lower level students, yeah? Higher level students, chances are they also go to Bushiban in the evenings, or they have some experience. This program really is to help give all the kids a little bit of boost. Maybe their family's not able to send them to Bushiban, or maybe they don't have that opportunity. So, you know, this is to help kids become familiar, to introduce them to English, but also to kind of give a little bit of a leg up to those middle to lower level students. And those are the ones you should focus on the most. Focus on individual students. Those higher level students, ask them to be your helpers. You know, use their skills. Not only are you going to be, you know, giving them face by saying, wow, you're really good, come help me be my teacher assistant, or wow, why don't you help your friends? Because there definitely is that culture here, and students do like to help each other. And so use that to your advantage, because you can't really give every single student individual attention every single day. So kind of find out who really needs that help. Make sure you do give everybody attention over time, but, you know, give the ones that need it, that individual extra help. Link phonics and spelling, like, you know, telling them, listening to a word and figuring out how to spell it. And the last one here is not just with phonics instruction, but with everything you do, make your instructions simple. Really simple, clear, and model for them what you want them to do. Okay, everybody, I want you to stand up. All right, let's turn around. Things like this. If you're showing them also, it's going to help them make those connections. So, okay. You good? All right. Basically, 3 things here. Don't do round robin, meaning having each student, okay, you say it, now you say it, now you say it, now you say it. Because when you do that, each student does get that individual chance to say something, but everybody else is just sitting there waiting, and they get really impatient. Small groups are good. Also, when you do small group, students feel more comfortable with each other. Okay, you guys, you're a group of 4, you're a group of 6, you're a group of 3. You know, talk to each other, practice this word together. And then you can have the whole class practicing at the same time, and everybody gets a chance to kind of speak, and you can walk around and listen to each group and help when it's needed, but then everybody gets that chance to speak and practice. Don't correct students too quickly. This is, for some people, I think this is hard because you really want to help them say it correctly. But if you give them a chance to correct their own mistake, like here in Asia in general, in Taiwan in particular, sometimes kids are terrified of saying something wrong, and they might not speak at all for fear of making a mistake. One, let them know it's okay to make mistakes by maybe you making mistakes on occasion and letting them catch you and correct you. You know, if they make a mistake, you almost have it. You are so close. I think change the ending, or, you know, look at that ending, look at that letter again, and, you know, maybe guide them to correct their own mistake rather than you telling them, no, sorry, you're wrong, it's this. So think about it that way. You kind of build up their self-esteem also. And the last one is this drill and kill. I know here, again, in Asia and here in Taiwan, you often get that whole class rote response. You know, you walk into the class in the morning, the students stand up, everybody says it together, you can hear them as you're walking around the hallways, everybody chanting, and that has its place, but with this one, it's too, you know, too easy for kids to sit there and just go and not really say anything, especially if they're shy. So that whole class response, it's okay for some things, but it's just, for this, I think it's not the best. Alright, this basically is talking about when you are doing those phonics lessons, something to think about. You as the teacher have to first give the information to the students, okay? So that's what you're doing. You're teaching and practicing. So you have to teach first and then practice. So here we've got, you need to teach and practice sounds, blending, decoding, reading, spelling, and writing. Meaningful teaching and practice those sight words. Meaningful means it actually has to be something that's going to be useful to them. And again, you guys are going to get a 40-minute session. So I would say 20 minutes for coursework actually in the book and 20 minutes for phonics. Now they don't have to be separate. You know, you can just make sure that at least half of your time you are focusing on phonics in some way, you know, and practice those sounds every day, the A, apple. Yes?
Is that going to be standard in most schools? But I was told by one of my colleagues that maybe the co-teacher might prefer to teach phonics by himself.
Okay, it does vary from school to school, but I think in general, classes are going to be 40 minutes, and most classes should have co-teachers. I know when I did start, again, this was a long time ago, most schools had co-teachers, but some didn't. But I think now it definitely is more having co-teachers. And I know that having a good relationship with your co-teacher, work with them to maybe kind of split up. And if you want to do that, you can. If the co-teacher wants to focus on phonics herself or himself, then you know maybe you can work something out. Okay, you deal with that. I'll deal with this. Or even if they do work on phonics themselves, you could still, I think, add a little bit in or focus. Oh, hey, teacher, you know, Ivy showed you this last week. I know teacher Ivy focused on this with your phonics or something like that. You can make those connections into what you're teaching. So yeah, I think it might vary a little bit from school to school, but in general, yeah, you should work together. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's kind of what you're focusing on, and so again, you are the one, you introduce them to the students first. Then the students will get the sounds from you. Then you practice with the students, and then let them play with it. That's the thing. Practice and play, not quite the same thing. So practicing is like, you know, you are making sure that they understand what they're doing. But then when you send them to do maybe small group, that's when they really get to kind of play with it. And that's where they'll build their confidence as well. And do the same thing again with the blending, putting together sounds, with the decoding. Same thing. You show them how to do it, you practice with them, and then let them play with it. Okay, so generally here, phonics has, a typical course would have 6 different stages, and these stages roughly correspond to grade levels as well. So, for example, in stage 1, or the first level, you're going to be focused more on motor skills and the alphabet letters, the sequence, you know, getting them to be able to use their mouth and tongue and lips correctly to pronounce the letters and things like that. Stage 2, you're moving on to consonants and short vowels. And again, that basically corresponds to 2nd grade, 3rd grade, long vowels and short vowels, the differences. Stage 4, about 4th grade, blending and digraphs. The more complicated, putting the letters together to produce new or different sounds. 5th grade, stage 5, R controlled vowels, because it does, the R definitely changes. And I know also that there's a stronger R controlled vowels in American English, North American English. But I think something that's nice about this program is that they really do try and focus or let kids know that, look, there are different accents, and the fact that we do have teachers from all around the world to provide those different accents to get the kids used to them. So, you know, I know while the school might focus more on North American English, you know, obviously we have teachers from everywhere. So, you know, I often might point out to a student, you know, In American English, it's bird, bird. But maybe a British English or Commonwealth English might be good. It'd be a little bit softer, not as hard. You can, maybe for the higher level students, but for the younger kids, don't worry so much about that. Just go ahead and teach them homework. Yeah. Okay, and finally, stage 6, 6th grade, you start again. Now we're focusing more on grammar and things like that. Parts of speech, prefixes, suffixes. This does all have to do with reading and pronunciation as well. But you can see, obviously, you're building upon these different things. So, question? All right. I'm gonna quickly.
Sorry, I have
Yes.
a question. At any point when you're teaching the low levels, do you introduce to them like any like nouns, like these ones are nouns, these ones are verbs, or you just don't even mention them until later?
I think in 2nd grade book they do have a few verbs, and you know, I think you can, you know, focus on like a noun as a person, place, or thing. You can give the basic, but you just don't need to spend as much time on it. But I know 2 examples here. I don't know if you guys, what you had this morning. But these are definitely 2 of the books, the ABC and Story and the ABC and Conversation. So the ABC and Conversation does bring in a few more, like I can swim, I can draw, I can, you know.
Mention it, but not like
Yeah, they do kind of focus on it, but yeah, they don't say these are nouns, these are, you know, they don't really need to know so much the label as much as the word itself. All right. What I have here, these 9 categories of learning, come from this series that I have, this phonics, letters, lessons, and phonics, lessons, letters, words, and how they work. This is really nice. It has lesson plans in here. It has great ideas for activities. It also has a resource book. And when we take a break and then later, I'll let you guys look at this and maybe even use this here when we're doing some of the activities. But basically, it's taken those 6 levels and broken them down into these 9 different categories, different things that you can focus on. The first one, early literacy concepts. This is, you know, focusing on the really basic of the idea of a letter versus a word versus a sentence, that these have sounds. Phonological awareness, focusing on the correspondence of, you know, that word is going to have a sound and it's going to have a meaning attached to it. Letter knowledge, again, letters and their sounds, or knowing that letter knowledge, there's a capital letter and a lowercase letter, that a sentence starts with a capital letter, things like that. Letter knowledge, letter sound relationships, spelling patterns, high frequency words, word meaning, word structure, and word solving actions. And I've kind of broken these up to also show you like what you should focus on for the different levels. Okay, first of all, these early literacy concepts. This is an example of what the book has. So it tells you what you're focusing on, for example, recognizing names. And then it also gives you some kind of a tool or an activity that you can use to practice that. So this is kind of a nice idea. You know, you don't have to go through this, but when you're doing your planning yourself, if you can kind of keep this in mind, okay, I want to focus on this. What activity can I use or what tool can I use to help with that? So, you know, we have early, mid, and late, and that's basically the school year. So at the beginning of the school year, you're focusing on this. The end of the school year, you're focusing on something else. So recognizing names, learning names, hearing words and sentences. You can do charts, songs and chants, and cut up sentences. And I'm sure later you're going to have someone probably come and talk to you more about, you know, activities and songs and chants and things like that. If you can keep this in mind when they're talking to you, it can also help you, okay, oh yeah, I remember I can use that for focusing on phonics and things. Sorting and connecting names, recognizing first and last letters, and locating first and last in print. Now this is a good thing too, focusing actually on print. Sometimes with Chinese, because each individual character is on its own, one word could actually go down, if there's two characters in the word, they can split it up and have it on two different lines. Whereas we don't always do that. Like, you can't just split a word in the middle. I mean, we often do with a hyphen, things like that, but, you know, the students here, I've noticed, will spell their name. You know, they'll start on one line and then finish it on the, and they, you know, that idea that, no, it needs to stay together. You know, if you don't have enough room, move down. Things like that is important. So, you know, if you can get them to recognize in print, you know, first names, last names, the fact that words need to stay together, things like that. And finally, you know, matching words, making sentences. And again, all of these different activities, cutting up sentences, getting them, which of these words is the first word, which is the last word. You know, the first word's going to have the capital letter most likely, the last word is going to have the punctuation with it. So getting them to recognize that kind of stuff too. Alright. Phonological awareness. Again, I'm not going to go through everything here, but I'm going to pick out a few to focus on. Here we're focusing on rhymes and syllables. And something else that I think is helpful, number 7 here, PA7, saying words very slowly does help students. If you slow it down, stretch it out, that helps them identify the letters in the word a little bit more easily. So you can do picture matches, picture sorts, all kinds of things, focusing on syllables and sounds. And then you want to focus on specifically hearing vowels, hearing blendings, like if I say pla, 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 what two letters are blended together in that, getting the kids to be able to hear that and be able to identify it. Very helpful. And then, again, rhyming, blending, and blending at the beginning of words and blending at the end of words. So you really kind of want to focus on that difference. Now, focusing on the endings of words is really important. In Mandarin, well, every kind of character, most often is going to be a consonant vowel. It's going to end in a vowel. So when students are saying a lot of English words, they have a tendency to drop the endings. They'll say my name. And they're not going to say my name, really. So you really do want to focus on endings. That's an important thing. Okay, and hearing and deleting sounds like, you know, oftentimes also you're going to get dogu, katu. Because again, that comes back to the Chinese characters. If you have a little bit of an understanding of what Mandarin is, the Chinese characters, and why they pronounce things they do, you're going to know they say dogu because it's consonant vowel. So they're just not used to having something ending in a consonant.
I just want to comment on that, especially the G sound, good. What I've done in some of my lessons, I took them to, whenever they say that, they always want to go, and to catch it, the.
Yes.
It really works. It works because at the end of the day, I'll say good, and they will say it, good. You know, that type of, when you say the word, I tell them, catch it, and they like to do that little game, they start catching it. Dug, so that they don't go good.
I like that. I've heard different things like scissors or karate chop, but the catching it, I like it because you're catching it and holding it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Catch it. I think that's something that with the end sounds.
Yeah, I mean in English, when we say our alphabet, you know, A, B, C, D, and when we're saying the sounds like A, B, K, D, there is an E sound, there is the on the end of it, and it's just, we just have been taught, I think, or we just know, you say dog, you don't, you know, saying the letter name or saying the letter sound isn't necessarily the same as saying sound in a word, but, you know, because of the way Mandarin is, that's going to be a little bit extra difficult for students, so you want to kind of focus on that. Okay, good. Alright, letter knowledge, again, learning the letters, you can play alphabet games, learning how to write their name, really focus on only the first letter in your name is capitalized. All the rest are small, otherwise they're going to use capital letters for everything. You know, really kind of focus on that. Things like this, you can, you know, draw the grid, writing grid on the board, have, you know, games, who can, I'm going to say a word, who can write it, or something that they really enjoyed, going back to earlier when I said make mistakes. If you write something on the board write it wrong and let them catch you and correct it. So one, not only are you showing them that it's okay to make a mistake, because you can fix it, you can learn from a mistake, but praise them also for catching that mistake, you know, and that's kind of a fun thing. I don't know why they love it. They love when they can correct you. Yeah. So that's kind of a fun thing. So here, you know, you're focusing on letters, uppercase, lowercase, forming letters. You can do a lot of kind of arts and crafty things too, playing with clay, magnetic letters, writing in the air, you know, sand, lots of different things that you can use to focus on writing your letters that can be a little more interesting than just writing on the board. I know some people have had little individual whiteboards for the students so they can have their own to practice, so sometimes they might have that as well, which would be kind of nice. Here we go. Yes. So yeah, uppercase, lowercase, all kinds of different things. And again, you matching games, card games, letter sorts, bingo, they love bingo. Bingo's really popular. And again, art things can be quite fun. Alright. Letter sound relationship. There's a lot of these alphabet word charts that you'll find. Classrooms will often have them. So I would definitely kind of use those. And again, you can use different pocket charts, things like that. Finding words in print, and let them make alphabet books. This is a good one here, LS6, number 6, an alphabet book. You can do this for each letter. You just take a regular piece of paper. Okay. And you fold it in half, fold it in half again, fold it one more time. You open it up and just cut at one spot. Put it back here. It's actually a little book. So you can do this like for each letter. For you can, you know, B, and on the inside they can draw pictures of words that go with the letter B. Write the word underneath it, and they can have their own alphabet book for each letter. You can make a class alphabet book. Things like that. And this is kind of a fun thing. It can be a little practice. It's easy to do and fun. They can draw their own pictures. Let's see. Spelling patterns. Okay, this is kind of as we're getting to some older students here, really focusing on these. I've already mentioned a couple times the rhyming, focusing on those word endings. We call them word families, right? So if you can focus on this, especially like, for example, ban, can, fan, man, pen, we know that we're just changing that first letter. But like I said, for a lot of students, every single word is new for them, and they got to sound it out. So really focusing on these 2-letter combinations that go at the end, or 3-letter combinations that go at the end of words, it will really help them not only be able to sound out words faster, but read faster, and a lot easier. They're going to be able to say, oh, that has the same ending as that word I know. The only thing that's different is that first letter. And so this is a good thing. Also, this is something good and nice to put around the classroom as well. You know, you've worked on all these different word families. You can put them up in the classrooms. At, and, a, those are some of the, at and are the 2 most common 2-letter word combinations. Ack is a good one. Ack, ache, ike, and, things like that. So, using magnetic letters is kind of good with this one. Or you could just write on the board as well if you don't have that. Alright, high frequency words. Like I said, all different levels can have high frequency words that they'll focus on. Dolch sight words are the most common for native speakers, but you can pick and choose from that. Obviously the a, and, as, at, if, in, these are going to be for the younger students, smaller words. As they get older, you're going to have longer sight words. These are words that are just so common, obviously, that they just need to know them. You know, you don't want to have to sound that out every single time. We see them, we just know it. So that's why they're sight words. But you know that. Word meaning. A lot of books do use this, especially like the 5th and 6th grade books. You're focusing on things like colors, numbers, days of the week, months, foods, whenever you can kind of group things together, we're focusing on word meanings. And so that can be a good thing. Connecting words that go together, things that go with family, things that go with, dinner, playing, things like that. So that can be quite good for the students. Word structure, and again here we're dealing with the older students, kind of more in the 5th and 6th grade. Learning, here we go into the plurals, okay, more the grammar. Plurals, adding S to change the words, compound words, recognizing syllables, butterfly. You're going to know that that's going to get split there in the middle. It's going to be 3 syllables. And the last one here, this word-solving actions. And again, this is really teaching kids how to read. That's what word solving is. You see a new word that you've never seen before. How are you going to be able to read that? So, teach them different things. You can focus on, like, that looks like a word I've seen before, or that has the same ending as another word. That starts like my favorite word, or that beginning letter is the same as my name. All kinds of different things that you can kind of focus on. So you want to make connections between names and words. For the younger kids, maybe letter sound analysis, focusing on, how does this sound, what does it mean? Making new words, sentences, changing last letters, all of this, you're going to use these for more higher level students. Okay, now, all of these things, again, just to kind of split it up. For the grades 1 and 2, the early literacy concepts, you focus on phonological awareness, you'll focus on letter knowledge, letter sound relationships. Now that doesn't mean that you're not going to talk about any of the others, but that's the major thing that you're probably going to be focusing on. For 3rd and 4th grade, letter sound relationships, spelling patterns, high frequency words, and word meaning. And for the 5th and 6th grade, the high frequency words, word meaning, word structure, word solving actions. Okay, so this can also help you when you're planning activities, when, what should I really focus on, in addition to whatever the textbook is teaching them. What should I highlight? And this will help you. Okay. Questions so far? I think this would be a good place to take a break, because I gave you quite a bit there. And the next one we're going to talk about pronunciation, a little bit shorter, and then the reading. And then, like I said, at the end, I want to give you guys time to kind of talk about how can you use this. This is going to be helpful for you. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and we'll take about 10 minutes, and then we'll start them again. All right, thanks.